Hey, welcome to the Business Network Podcast. My name is Dean Renfro. I'm host of the podcast. We are so glad to have you with us. Business Network Podcast is all about helping local businesses, whether it's a brick and mortar store, an online store, a franchise, any kind of business owner that's trying to put the message out there about their business, their product, or their service. We want to interview them and give them a chance to tell their story about their service, their product, what their business is about to the world. And this gives them a platform to do that. And we're so glad to have you with us today. So let's get started with today's podcast. But first, a word from our sponsors.
There's a saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Here at Lead Grabber, we agree. You've got one chance to grab the attention of your website visitors and one functional opportunity to lead them to action. With Lead Grabber, you can uniquely greet each visitor, encourage appointments to be set, capture more leads, give more value and access in a compelling way, funnel new customers into your sales process, facilitate new and more sales, save time and more money, build your brand, and so much more with custom integrations. Impress each and every one of your website visitors. Make your site stand out from ordinary websites and your competition. We invite you to get started with Lead Grabber today.
Hey, that was a great word from our sponsor. Really appreciate the opportunity here for us today to come together. You know, opportunities for us as business owners is something that we all need to take advantage of, especially when we can grow ourselves, grow our business. And, you know, coming out of COVID, there's a lot of things that happen to us personally and in our lives, things that we never expected. Things happened in our business in a lot of different kinds of ways. You know, there were regulations we had to follow, there's money we lost, there's customers we lost, there's employees we lost. And we really took a hit. And, you know, one of the things that I have found in my process of life as a business owner is you always need that outside voice looking in and talking to you, because we get to talking in our own head and we get to talking to our, the people that are right close up to us in our business. And they're just reflecting what we're already thinking. But sometimes we don't need that. Sometimes we need that outside voice. Well, today's guest in our podcast is exactly that. He is a business coach that can help you as a business owner get that perspective that perhaps maybe you don't have. I know as a marketing business coach, you know, I oftentimes help business owners that from a marketing perspective figure those things out, because they've like, I spent thousands of dollars and I didn't get anything. I said, well, maybe that's because you started with the wrong question, or you started with the wrong idea, or you started with the wrong way to deliver it. And I help them see that because they can't see it. You know, well, today's guest is going to help us from a business perspective. I've known Steve a while. He is a coach, in that vein like I am, and we're passionate about that. And that's one thing that makes a difference. So I just want to introduce our guest today, Steve. Steve, tell us about who you are, what your business is, and a little bit about where you're at right now.
All right, appreciate it. Good to be here. Good to see you again, too. It's been a little bit. So, Steve Schultze, and, I own my own coaching company, Leaders Transformed, and my purpose and journey is to help, those new leaders to directors find their way in their leadership journey, right? Not just to help themselves, but to hopefully really enhance the people around them also, right? So it's to help them reach their personal and professional ambitions. That's what I'd say the big thing about it is, but there's so much more to it, right?
Yeah, there's so much more to it. You know, Steve, as you've got a story, and part of that story is kind of how you got to here that I think our viewers could need to know. I think it's something always important. What's the background? Where did we come from? Why are we passionate about this? So tell us a little bit about kind of how you got to today, so to speak.
Absolutely. So I did, 30 years in the Navy. I absolutely loved it. Submarines, aircraft carriers, aviation commands. And during that time, I was fortunate. I worked my way up into what I'd call mid-level management leadership quickly. And I spent 2/3 of my career in leadership, working my way up into senior leadership, and loved it. I loved helping individuals find who they were, develop their own skills and their growth. And that led to me on my way out of the Navy, finding coaching. It was still oh, what am I going to do, right, during that transition? But coaching kind of found me as well as I found it. And so I went on and, went through and got my certifications so that I could actually, meet the International Coach Federation requirements for coaching. And that's where it started. And so I've been coaching for years, right? And I absolutely enjoy helping individuals discover the things they have within themselves to do better for themselves and those around them. It's absolutely incredible to see what people will come up with when you're coaching them and recognize they own it.
Yeah, I do. I think that is such an important part of helping. Sometimes when people look at coaching from a coaching perspective, they think we're the answer person. We're supposed to give them the answer, and really, as you just said, as you just framed it very well, is no, really, the answer's in you. My job is to help you get that out where you can see it. And then act on it, because you can't do their job for them. That's not what they hired you for, and they have to own it and be responsible for it. And so I think, that is so true about coaching is that passion to help people be more. And I know, and from the marketing side of coaching, a lot of things happened to people in the COVID crisis that, literally scared them to death. I mean, they came out of there with unknowns that they weren't sure about anymore, and they became fearful. And in some cases, I don't know if anything's going to work anymore. And so they came out of there losing their confidence. Talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you do with your clients to help them discover for themselves, what it is that needs to come out of them to help them, because I'm sure that's happened in the process of coaching people.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the unique things I saw during COVID for a lot of leaders was the disconnect, because there was no longer the human connection in the office. The way I put it is, those flyby meetings where someone would come into your office and just want to say, hey, here's what's going on. Well, those went away, and those created more information and more connection than we recognized. Right. At the time, we may have looked at him and thought, man, that was just a distraction. All of a sudden, I'm not able to get done what I want. But in reality, it was a connection we wanted. Yeah. And so many individuals, I will share, during their Zoom meetings and everything else, there wasn't that type of interaction. And so for a lot of individuals, we found ways for them to create that interaction again. And I'll share one of the big ones, having a coffee or lunch meeting. Take the agenda meeting off the table and do nothing more. And for a lot of the leaders, what they found worked really well was actually, having that coffee delivered or having that, food delivered, even though they were in different areas of the country, and they might have had 4 different people, but it showed so much to the people they were leading that each of them got something delivered, and they all sat down and just had a lunch, even though it was virtual. It was huge. It was huge. They realized, oh, wait, we can still do this. We've just had a block up here that says, I can't schedule another Zoom meeting. I can't do that. Right. But the people on the other end wanted it just as bad most of the time. Yeah. So that was one, I would say, huge tool right there for a lot of individuals was don't be afraid. If you're thinking it, do it. Or ask others if they're thinking the same and do it. But, just get out there, ask the question. It's crazy. Think about how often, right, you run into somebody and you're like, hey, how's it going today? And you get that, oh, good. Oh, I'm doing all right. But right, as a coach, oh, good. All right. Tell me more. What does good mean? And now it's like, oh, crud, now we're peeling the onion. What's really going on here? And so that's the same type of thing we do as, leaders and business owners. We have to not always take that initial face value question. Ask another. Let's really find out what our individuals want. What do the business, individuals come into our business really want from us? So don't be afraid to ask more questions. But I think we clammed up a little bit in so much of this Zoom, Teams environment that we thought, oh, we got to be direct, we got to be quick, and we got to move on because it's all valuable time to us.
Yeah.
That's what I would share.
Yeah, I think, it is so true, is interruptions usually like that, especially when they're critical component like that, interruptions really force us to the basic mode that we can, like you said, I don't have much time. You don't have much time. I don't want to waste your time. So let's make this short and do that. And like I said, as human beings, most human beings are designed to be around other human beings on a regular basis, and have interaction with them, not all business with them. Even the customers that come in our store, kind of a approach is, it's not about, I'm in here to buy this and I'm gone. For some people, it's an experience. They're there to unwind. They're there to kind of, what's new in your store? What's new can I learn? And so they kind of wander around the store. And of course, you train your people to walk around going, do you need help? Do you need help? And they're like, no, leave me alone. I'm just looking. Some people mean that really. And some people like, that's their excuse to, they don't want to deal with you right now. And they don't want you to sell them something. But on the other hand, coming out of COVID, we forgot that we have to kind of get back to having a conversation with people is so important. And if anything that we would learn, just great example that you gave is, well, how do we still do that even virtually? Because there's that sense of reciprocity that comes when there's give and take, even in a conversation, kind of a thing. And I think coaching is very much of that. And I think another thing inadvertently, as you so mentioned well, that I'm sure you help your clients with is how to ask better questions.
Yes.
How do you ask better questions? And just like you do it through example for sure, because you just did it through example. But it's not always a skill that a lot of people have. So when you talk about some of your clientele, give us a little bit of a picture of who your best candidates are for what you're doing. In our world, as we talked about earlier before the show, was we call them avatars. Right. And of course, the movie world and the comic world has made a big deal about that. There's whole kinds of things built around avatars, but it is a kind of that nature of who are these people. And tell us a little bit about that for yourself.
All right. Yeah. So I love it. Avatar. You make me think, oh, wait a minute. Isn't there a sequel movie coming out to that or whatever?
yeah, there is.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So, right. That ideal client, how about, I'll call it that ideal client we talk about. And so yeah, on my journey, right, when I first was figuring out who was my ideal client, I went through multiple things to figure it out, right? It didn't just work like the marketing dream that I would hope, that I said, this is who I want to work with, and they wanted to work with me. It took a little bit of a journey to find it, and I went through some various ways to get there. But ideally, after working and pushing through and not just giving up, I did find my ideal client. And they're typically a manager, and they can be new managers, right? They got a team, 4 to 5 people, up to directors of large organizations. But really, they're open to exploring and having a journey to learn more for themselves, is what it's really about. They're not looking for me to come in as a consultant and say, do X, Y, and Z. They recognize that they want to know how to do X, Y, and Z, but they're not sure if it's them or me. And then, starting out in coaching, they quickly realize it's about them finding X, Y, and Z, and I'll help them get there. But at the end of the day, they still own X, Y, and Z, not me, right? So that's that accountability piece for them, is now I own it if I were the one being coached, rather than, hey, Steve gave me all these things to go do, and when they didn't work, I can blame Steve, right? Because that's not how it works. So that's where I'd say my journey took me, was to find that ideal person for me, is that manager that's hungry, or that director that's hungry to do more. They still want more. It's not about just finding a way to deal with an individual. And now that I'm done with that, thanks, Steve, we're done with coaching. If that answers your question.
I think exactly. Yeah. That's that framework that happens a lot, is that coaching very different, for our audience to understand. You can be a consultant, which means basically you're going to come in and give an answer. And if it works, they keep you. If they don't, they fire you. Coaching works very different than that. It's a very different format of that. And oftentimes like myself, I even though quote I'm a marketing coach, I still get coached in marketing. I still have coaches that I call on because, again, the hand in the face thing is there's things you can't see because you're so ingrained in what you do that you need outside voices. You need people asking you, as you've shared there, better questions. And you really need people who will help you develop yourself. And a lot of, there's kind of been a movement out there. Oh, you can coach yourself. And I don't know about you and your opinion of that, but most people I've seen that try that wind up right back where they started and not in a good place, because it's difficult. Can you grow yourself? Yeah, you can read a book. Yeah, you can go to a seminar. Yeah, you can hire a coach for a period of time. But the moment you unplug from that, what would you say happens to people? Tell us a little bit about how you go about helping people stay plugged in.
Yeah, I love that. Gosh, it's crazy how many times someone will give an answer right to my question, and I will tell you, just like I said, in that question, how you doing today? Good, right? Because we give that surface level answer, like, okay, hopefully I answered it and we're done with this, right? And it's so many times someone will give an answer and just sit there for a second. Well, tell me more about that. And then it'll be, and I mean, as simple as that type of question, it puts them to think about it now. Well, why did that show up just now as a concern for me? Or what is really behind the idea I'm telling, right now? And it drives them to go a little bit deeper and really validate within themselves what's going on, is what I would call it at the moment. And it's crazy how many times someone will say, I've got an issue with X, Y, whatever, I don't want to use X, Y, Z again, but I've got an issue and here it is. And here's what I'm thinking. And then I'll tell me more. What do you expect to get out of that? Or whatever it is. Then the person will talk for 10 minutes,
right?
Literally 10 minutes. And then they'll have worked their way, all those layers, but they would have never done that on their own because no one had put just a little bit more behind it. And they get done and they sit back and they go, I don't know why I haven't done that already. And we just talked about it. And gosh, I should just do that.
Yeah.
You're right. And you found your answer. But it does. It takes that little bit of spurring, right? And that's as a leader. We do the same thing as a leader to help our people. We just ask the right questions sometimes to help them find their best decision. That way we're not the decision maker all the time as a leader. We're growing our people to make the best decisions for themselves and our organization, obviously. But yeah, so it's the same type of thing.
Yeah, so true. I think that, that whole thing is that some of those self conversations that we have, and then a third party comes along like a coach to help us, is that, we haven't talked it through enough because we don't really believe it enough yet, and getting that question and having to tell a little bit more about why, or how would that work, or what was that going to look like? The things that coaching does for people helps them get, as you said, more refined till, like you said, that aha light bulb moment goes off and goes, I just solved my issue. Thanks. What do we, let's put something to this and make it work. So, I think today, hopefully our audience has really, really understood how important it is to have an outside voice speaking with us, working with us, walking through it with us. Oftentimes is what we need for that. So Steve, how let's tell our audience about how they can get a hold of you. What's kind of the common steps to connecting with someone like yourself? What could an audience do to get connected to you, and what could they expect from that?
So for me, it's all about having a conversation to start, right? There's no right coach for everybody. You have to find the right individual that you think is right. So it's all about starting with a conversation. What do you want? Why are we going to do that? And really, that's where it starts. So for me, I've got a website, leaderstransform.com, and in there you can schedule. You can send me an email. It's got my phone number on it. I'm on LinkedIn. There's my company page, Leaders Transform, but I'm also there as, Stephen Schultze. So those are some of the common ways people reach out to me. I'd say that's, 95% of the way people reach out to me is via those channels. And we just find a time, have a discussion. And oh, by the way, if coaching's really what you need, but I'm not the right coach for you, it's not that I just say so long. Who is your right coach? Let me help you find that person, right? The sooner you can find them, the sooner you can find some, go forward momentum is what I'll call it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so true. I think that's one of the, and you mentioned this early in the broadcast, why it's important for coaches like ourselves to belong to organizations, because we're not always the right fit for them, but because we're in a quote, an organization that has all kind of connections, we usually know someone said, maybe you should contact so-and-so because they sound like a great fit for you. And you can have this same kind of conversation with them. And oftentimes, I know in your organization, my organization, is we've kind of all been basic trained the same way. So it's not like they're starting over with somebody. They know what to expect. And for so many people, it's a level of comfortability past that first conversation is, okay, I can get comfortable with this person for that. Well, Steve, as we kind of wrap up today, it's been some great time. I know you and I both, because we're passionate about it, we could probably go on all day talking about stuff in coaching and things that we have, and that's great. But as we kind of wrap this up, what's kind of a last word of advice you would tell a business owner, somebody that's thinking, I really do need some help? What would you tell them today?
I would say, interesting. If that little voice in your head is constantly telling you no, then it's time to have someone else challenge that voice with you. That's what I would say. Because we are so good about judging ourselves and creating stories and getting ourselves to a point of, no, I can't do that. And we do it like in an instant. We become a stop. We put ourselves in a stop. So maybe finding that person and working with them will all of a sudden open up new opportunities that are right in front of you and you didn't realize it.
Wow, what a great show today. I appreciate our guests, each and every one of them, as they come on and are part of the Business Network podcast. You too perhaps might be a business owner and you'd like to feature your business and tell your story, and we'd love to have you as a guest. You can go to the businessnetworkpodcast.com, and you can see the link here on the screen, and just fill out an application. It's not an obligation to be on the show, but we want to start the process with you to be able to say, hey, let's talk about your business and see how this podcast could be a great fit for you, and for you to get the assets that go along with this show to be able to promote your business in a lot of different places. So, hey, thanks again. We look forward to you being with us again on the next The Business Network podcast. Talk to you soon.